Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, and an episode this week that focuses on wine that keep the environment close to the heart. Now, there are plenty of wines across South Africa where the farmers, the winemakers, the estates really do focus on ensuring that they make the best of the environment and that they have a positive impact. But we've got 4 this week who've gone to the next level. 4, admittedly, of quite a few in South Africa. Wines that are carbon neutral, that are organic, that are environmentally friendly, that are biodynamic, and there are all sorts of ways you can do this. And the first one we have this week is from an estate that I'm particularly fond of, mostly because it's the estate where I got married. Backsberg, halfway between Paarl and Franschhoek, is a beautiful estate. It's got that lovely sweeping drive up towards what's a fairly large wine centre, the tasting area, the function venue, and it's a really cool place to visit, and it's a great place for wine. The wine they make is excellent. Clive Trent, the viticulturalist, which is a nice way of saying farmer, does a terrific job. He's a big hitting cricketer with a big heart and a great flair for winemaking, wine farming, and the estate as a whole under Simon Back does some really cool stuff. But they haven't done much cooler than become carbon neutral, and they were, if I'm not mistaken, the very first South African estate to become carbon neutral, to make sure that whatever they put out, they compensate for, planting trees, making the estate a better place, and ensuring that their wine has some excellent karma to it. And that adds to some excellent tasting notes, some excellent flavours, some excellent fruit. By and large, they make great wine, and the carbon neutral, just another very good reason to try the wine from Backsberg. You'll often see when you buy a flight the option to buy some carbon credits to cancel out the carbon footprint of your flight, translate that into wine estate terms, and what Backsberg are doing is looking at the carbon that they produce as an estate and cancelling that out by planting trees, by making the world a greener and healthier place, and as such producing the kind of wine that Greenpeace would have at their annual dinner alongside of their roast tofu and their handful of compost. Would this go with tofu or compost? I'm not sure. They're not things I often eat, but a nice big rich Cabernet Sauvignon probably would go with something of more substance. Nice big South African steak. It's a wine I've had many times before. That's a wine I've always enjoyed. Now, it's only a couple of years old, and you can definitely taste that it's got room to grow. It's got room to flatten out and to become something a little more substantial, but already it's a really, really nice drink. It's got lots of big ripe fruit. There's a smoothness to it that'll only get smoother in time, but already it goes down particularly well. And it's endemic of so much about Backsberg. It's a very open, welcoming place. They're always incredibly friendly. They're always so happy to see people, to welcome you in. Their lamb on a spit over the weekends is world class, and this will slide down so well with that lamb on a spit. It's an open, welcoming wine, nothing pretentious about it. It's just really good, and it's making the world a better place. What better reason could you want to have some? So, from carbon neutral to organic. Now, I'm not sure the 3 hectares of stickers on the bottle are organic, but the wine certainly is. And if you look at one of those stickers in particular, the Nedbank Green Wine Awards, Organic Ally Grown Grapes, just a reminder that as well as being very good wine, as the other stickers would suggest, this one reaffirms that this is an estate that takes its organic wine very seriously. The process, they don't use pesticides, they do everything as naturally as they possibly can. It's not too far from Toolback. It's a lovely space. I've been out there a number of times. Great for a wedding. They've got a very nice menu, little restaurant that looks down over the slight dip of the valley. But it's the wines that are the highlight. And the thing with organic wine, with any wine that kind of steps off the straight and narrow as we know it, are we compromising the quality by going for something that's perhaps a little different? So in making organic wine, are we making wine that might be better for the earth, but maybe isn't quite so good in terms of its taste or its flavour? It's a question that's often asked. Let's answer it. So this is an SMV, Shiraz Mourvèdre Viognier, Viognier being the white grape that's often added in a small dose to a red blend for a little bit of smoothness to it. And just on the colour, it's looking incredibly attractive. It's 6 years old now, so it's had a good bit of time in bottle, and yep, on the nose it's certainly very promising indeed. I know there are a couple of people who've had the wines out of Waverley Hills, sometimes found them a little thin. I think this is nice. It's a subtle blend. It's not overly robust. It's not bursting onto the palate. It's rather sliding in rather delicately. And I think they've combined the wines really nicely. The tannins are really soft. But in particular, it's a wine that's really good, and it's a wine that's made organically. So that can only be better. If it's doing better for the estate, doing better for the earth, and still making excellent wine, then I think you are winning on all fronts. Great blend, aged nicely, and doing great justice to the organic process. Then on to something that is almost certain to be a novelty tea, and that's because it's only just been released. You might remember we had the Opar Bull when we looked at Pinotage not that long ago. The Freighters put that together, and this is the same crew. Dan Freighters, the winemaker, Gerard, his brother, is the viticulturalist, and this is biodynamic farming. This means they run around the farm naked, smeared in mud. They make the wine to the sounds of classical music. In fact, that's actually true. The naked part might not be, but they have this wine fermenting to the sounds of classical music. They actually do that. They put in a little bit of sulfur at the start of the process, otherwise it's all natural, and the only thing that they spray their grapes with is rosemary oil, often used as a fragrance if you've been to Greece. That's what they use. It's a really simple, basic, back to nature approach, and it's emerged in the form of this Biodynamix Max 1. It's a rather standard 10 biology school textbook type label, but it's still in its very early stages, really only out for the last couple of months. The process is admirable. Can the wine match up? So the wine is very much a family affair up on the hills above Pal, made by guys who are very committed to this kind of process. They want to make wine, but they want to make wine in what they believe is the right way, not just in terms of creating the wine, but in terms of the process that is involved. Hence the Biodynamix label. It is in its very early stages. Now, it's all well and good to make the wine and make sure that it is environmentally friendly, but can you still deliver on the final product? Yep. Now, I've got a few vegan friends who would happily throw this back. It's a really nice wine, and it's wine that's made really well, and it's wine that's only just beginning. So as the Freighters really find their feet, not only making great wine, but making wine that's helping us to save the planet. And then to our final wine. Now, something I've picked up over the course of making this particular show is that there are a lot of winemakers who are besotted with surfing. And Johan Reyneke is another. Give him the choice, I'm not sure he'd be able to decide whether he'd like to surf full-time or make wine full-time. He surfs particularly well, but I think making wine is his real claim to fame. And the wine he makes, like the Waverley Hills, is fully organic. If you go online, do a bit of a search, you can come across a great video where Johan discusses his surfing, but also what he does with his estate, and he tells a great story about the dandelions and how initially pulling them up, he had given more scope to bugs getting into and infecting his vines, not realizing the symbiosis between those weeds and the bugs. It's a slightly complex story, but it's a really good illustration of the mindset that is at Reyneke, that they want to work in harmony with nature and realize that everything is there for a reason. And rather than being restrictive, how can they be proactive and make everything that much better for everybody involved, plant or otherwise? And out of all of that comes some excellent wine. The Reyneke wine has for some time now been celebrated simply as wine. Forget the environmentally friendly side of it, the wine itself has been really good. The fact that it is so environmentally friendly is just a massive bonus. From the ruby red nose through to those rich cherry, very slightly sour cherry feels, the pitted fruit, a lovely smoothness that goes right through the palate. This is one of many examples of why Johann Reyneke is so fated for the wine that he's making. It's an absolutely quality Syrah, and it's got that perfect finish, that fluidity to it that speaks of the best Syrahs. A really, really nice, fulfilling mouth of red wine. But then you throw in the way that it's made and the fact that there is such a conscientious feel for the environment in which it's made and how to ensure that that environment is best looked after in the winemaking process. And you've got somebody who's creating really good wine for all the right reasons. And that really applies to all of our wines here. The carbon neutral crew down at Backsberg, Waverley Hills, with their organic wine. Biodynamix, fresh into the market, only just finding its feet, but I think with a very bright future indeed. And then Johann Reyneke, who, when he's off his surfboard, is coming up with some absolute gems, this being one of them. And I'm sold. This is wine that you wouldn't say, oh, there might be something wrong or different with this. There's not at all. It's really, really good wine that just happens to have a backstory that makes the world a better place. So I'm off to find my tie-dyed shirt. I'm headed down to the Neisner Forest. I'll listen to some Cat Stevens and dance about under the trees, drinking 4 wines that are absolutely brilliant and pretty good for the world as well. Cheers.